5 years or 10 years in the future from now, we'll have devices attached to us or projecting to us or whatever that basically just overlay another layer of reality, a metaverse, on top of the layer of reality that we currently experience, as transparent as interfacing with your phone. Just as we were at the beginning of the internet when you would sign into AOL, we're probably 3 years before the dot-com boom era of the metaverse. But if you had the chance to start Amazon in 1995, wouldn't you do it?
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, my friend. I'm excited to have you here. Everyone listening back home, I'm excited to reintroduce you to the one, the only. You know him and you love him as the Maestro, but he's my friend, Michael Shoup. How you doing, Michael?
So good. So good. It is a beautiful fall day here in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm enjoying the weather. I'm ready to get out for the weekend and hang out, and at the same time do some stuff in the metaverse because they're all just coming together. They're all coming together at the same time.
Well, I know it's a big time for the metaverse right now, and we want to get into it with you today. I wonder if you would tell us just a little, by way of introduction for people who don't know you, about who you are, what you do, and then make the transition to blockchain and the metaverse for them too.
Yeah, happy to. The way I like to take this these days is I'm basically like a nomadic entrepreneur, which, you know what, I feel like a lot of us are, right? Evan, I know you're that way.
Yeah.
My initial background's in music. I did that for years in school, and then I did that as a career for a while. And, I moved into doing design and development and then running my own agency. And then from there, kind of wanted to dig into the future of tech and continue to grow with the industry, and dipped into crypto and found people like you, Evan, and Mac and Alex, and was lucky enough to become one of the Faceless Many and help launch our project, the Faceless Many, about a year ago now. And as the nomadic entrepreneur tends to be, I can't stop but dip into new technology. And so when we were doing things with the Faceless Many and trying to see how we could, integrate into the blockchain and use technology, it was inevitable for us at some point to stumble into the metaverse.
Yeah.
Right?
Is that's what really brought you to the metaverse then, was your work with TFM? You were like,
funny. I had tangentially known about the metaverse and dipped into parts of it and played around some, but it was this kismet moment when we were doing stuff with TFM. I had bought an Oculus, and Spatial turned from doing like business to business meetings to doing things in NFT. All those three things literally happened in the same month.
Yeah, perfect storm.
Perfect storm, and suddenly here I find myself in the metaverse.
Yeah, man. Now, we've talked about this before about like, what is the metaverse? What do you see what we're doing now? Everybody watching or listening, if they're not familiar with the metaverse or only partially familiar, I bet they've seen those videos. Have you seen that video of, I think it's somebody's grandma, and she's in a headset and she's doing like the balance beam and she falls down and she like breaks her hip, or there's someone else who's like doing the same kind of thing and then they jump into their TV.
Yeah.
Is that the metaverse for those people who are like, uninitiated? Is that what we're talking about here?
I mean, so there's a place that we're at now, right, where some people might look at it and think, are we talking about flying around in Second Life just like years later? And I think that metaverse gets a bad rap in that scenario because, people relate it then to technology that was around 10 years ago. And there's only a certain distance that you can go from like an actual 3D or VR standpoint just because of where the technology is today. Sure. But what people are doing with and doing inside the metaverse is very different than what they might have been doing in Second Life or in World of Warcraft or, some kind of game.
Well, sure.
The reason I'm interested in the metaverse is because I feel like just as we were at the beginning of the internet when you would sign into AOL, and like hear the "you've got mail" sound, and first experience like the bulletin board service of communication. And now we're on streaming podcasts and all kinds of different things, right? We've blown
Mm-hmm.
through that.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the same spot that we are in the metaverse, where you might feel right now that it's difficult to get in there. Do you have to, be in crypto? Do you have to understand blockchain? Do you have to be a member of one of these organizations? We're at the like, oh, there's barriers to entry place. But 5 years or 10 years in the future from now, I truly believe that it will be as transparent as interfacing with your phone, that will have devices, whether they're attached to us or projecting to us or whatever, that basically just overlay another layer of reality, a metaverse, on top of the layer of reality that we currently experience. And so what we're seeing now today in the metaverse with like Decentraland and Spatial and all of these AR and VR things you can do with your phone are the beginnings of testing out that experience, and the beginnings of creating content that will exist in that experience that will soon be seamless and transparent to how we live right now.
I really like that analogy of a second layer, because I think it de-emphasizes the hardware. This idea that it will be about a screen strapped to your face, and really puts emphasis on this tool to connect people who might not otherwise be able to share experiences. Does that sound right?
Absolutely. And I think it should never be about the tech, right? The tech is how things come to be. But the reason things become mainstream, the reason things happen and move and become entire movements and revolutions, are because the tech has disappeared. The tech is no longer visible. It's just an experience, and it's a human experience. That's at least my hope of the metaverse. Now, obviously, there are all kinds of different directions and niches and rabbit holes that you can jump into.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm super bullish on the metaverse, and why I'm starting a company in the metaverse, is that I see it as being that investment. We're probably 3 years before the .com boom era of the metaverse, let's say. But if you had the chance to start Amazon or to start Yahoo in 1995, wouldn't you do it?
Yeah, obviously.
That's where we are. That's what I'm just super excited about. And so what we're trying to do at Monarch is basically look at all of the problems that might exist today, but then also a bunch of the future problems that we think are going to exist as this becomes mainstream, as we help onboard the next billion people to the experience that is the metaverse. What are those problems going to be, and how can we solve them now so that they're not problems, a year from now?
Can we slow down a little bit and zoom in on that? Because, okay, so you're founding an agency. This is obviously a big deal to you, a big enough deal to make this part of your like professional life full time.
Sure.
But I don't know that people listening, or even that I, really understand what those problems are. So can you tell me more about what's wrong right now with the metaverse as it exists today?
Yeah. Well, let's start with what's right. There's a lot of things that I think are right.
Okay, sure.
I love the experience in certain metaverses, right? But you've got lots of ones that are disconnected. You've got Decentraland and Spatial. You've got Sandbox. You've got a bunch of different places, some of which are on the blockchain, some of which are not on the blockchain, most of which are not connected that you have to make an account on. We're still in like a centralized world.
Sure.
And the thing that becomes, I think, the first speed bump we have in those is that you can make an account, you can get in there, and if you're lucky, you can experience things that other people have put there, which is great. That's fantastic, and that's how a lot of people will probably experience the metaverse. But there's an end road to that. And the thing that's unique about the metaverse in general is that there is endless creativity, endless creation. There is no limit to the number of pixels and digital things that you can do.
Sure. We've talked about this. It's the idea that why would you pay for land in the metaverse when land is not scarce? You can just make more of it with the click of a button.
Right. And so one of the first things people do when they get into the metaverse is, how do I make this my own, right? How do I get my objects, how do I get my things into here? How do I build this world the way I want it to be? Mm-hmm. And right now, that is not a simple feat. unless you are very well, immersed into 3D modeling, building, objects in Blender or in Unreal or that kind of thing. And so there's sort of this instant, um, you know, wall that's put up of like,
Like a
well, I
barrier.
experience this, but I'm not going to use it. And then usually you're gone.
Got
Maybe there's an event, you'll go visit it in the metaverse, but it's not going to become part of your life all that often.
Mhm.
There are places that you can, find or buy or download objects, experiences, environments to use in some of those metaverses.
Okay. Like if you're not a builder.
You got it. So if you're not a builder, or maybe you're like a hobbyist builder and you want to say like, oh, I'm going to, get this room and I'm going to put this stuff in the room. I know enough at least to like move them around, right?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
The downside that's happening there is that we're still sort of split. We've got places like Sketchfab or CGI Trader, where a lot of those artists are really building things for gaming, for video games. And those objects tend to be a lot higher. I'm going to get technical here, but a lot higher poly count, a lot higher texture count, because if you're building a game, I mean, you can run this. You're expecting that person's going to have like a really great
some sort
card.
of machine that they're really dedicating a lot of power to.
Right.
Yeah.
When you build things from the metaverse, at least right now, you have to build it at sort of the lowest tier available, because you want people to be able to get there and use it on their phone, on a web browser. And so you're not going to have this like million, vertice object that is just like, it's going to kill you.
Yeah, gigabytes, time to load. You can't hardly interact with it if you got a bad internet connection, and then all the metaverse fun is gone.
You got it. Yeah, people will just get lost trying to do this. So you have to download stuff. You have to then like decimate it or figure out the right format or all kinds of stuff. So there's some issues there. And I'm a pretty techie guy. And when I first got doing stuff with the metaverse, I even had to just like read up on a bunch of different formats. Every platform has different ways that you need to bring stuff in. So it's just a little, mind blowing.
Yeah.
On the flip side, there are marketplaces like OpenSea that do have like metaverse specific objects. You can buy things for Sandbox. You can buy things for Decentraland. You can buy things for Spatial on Sandbox or on OpenSea. But there's a couple issues there. One, the biggest one, is that they've sort of relegated metaverse NFTs, which is what those are, to this like tiny corner of the marketplace, that doesn't have to deal with PFPs or, that kind of deal. So it's hard to find, number one. And number two, it's really difficult to understand what you're getting there, because there is no, organization of the metadata or of the information there, right? You click on an NFT or you click on a collection of NFTs and you're like, are these environments? Is this just a card? Is this a chair? What is this?
Sure. Okay. Is there also confusion? This is something I'm curious about like whether or not it will even work in the metaverse I want to put it in. Is there like a universal standard for that? Is that a problem too?
Yeah, there isn't. There isn't a universal standard. And it's really just dependent on how well whoever wrote out that collection, that NFT, just decided to describe it.
Got it.
Which is varying levels of not.
Yeah, the marketplace is not set up in a way to help people who might want to use that thing, might want to purchase it, find it, or figure out if this is for me.
Yeah. Now, to their credit, OpenSea is not trying to do that.
Sure.
And most people that are selling things over there are probably, like I know Spatial does this. They'll talk about stuff on their platform and say, if you want to buy it, link out to OpenSea. Here's how you buy it. So they're sending the traffic. They're not trying to use it as a discovery platform. But how unfortunate is that you have no discovery platform for those objects? And so that's honestly, as a builder, a big part of the issue I found, that it's really difficult to find stuff. The stuff that you find is really difficult to know how you're going to put it together. And there's not even like good collections or what I would call builder kits to be able to help you do that very easily.
I got you. So naturally, as a problem solver, you come to this place of what can I do to fix this metaverse, goods issue. And so the idea for Monarch starts to take shape there, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was initially just, hey, through building worlds with my agency on our own, I've gotten to know a lot of other designers, and they make great stuff, and it's hard to find it, and I have trouble finding things that we might want to put together and reuse. Understanding the licensing of any of those things is very difficult, and so I just said, maybe I can find a space where we can all come together, or build a space where we can all come together and help sell this stuff and direct people to a singular spot to get that stuff instead of all of these different spots. Yeah. And in digging further into doing that, to be honest, I uncovered a whole slew of other problems that I didn't even know existed, that are sort of those future problems that I was talking about, where they probably don't feel that much like a problem now, but in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, because things that are in the metaverse or on the blockchain are permanent, it can be a giant problem.
I gotcha. So the Amazon analogy is really quite apt then, in terms of what you're trying to do here. It's like, I almost am thinking of, from this talk and other conversations we've had, it's almost like a Bed Bath and Beyond store, or like an Amazon store, but for the metaverse, right? Like, you're tired of looking for your metaverse goods at Kroger in the discount section, or, way in the back. So here's a whole store for you. It's all organized. You can see who made it. You can see, I'm assuming, what it's made for, all those kinds of details that you said were missed by the other marketplaces.
Yeah. So there's a couple things we're trying to put as almost like a layer on top of those layers, right?
Yeah. Walk me through like how it bridges that gap.
Totally. So the easiest thing and the first thing that we were thinking about is, hey, these things need better awareness and a centralized or easy place to come get it, right?
Okay.
Not like a corner of OpenSea or something that's sort of like Sketchfab, but like is difficult to do. We just need a marketplace for the metaverse, where metaverse objects are bought, sold, traded, everything, that in the future can integrate in the metaverse, where you can go inside the metaverse and buy, sell, trade things.
Got it. So there's a store in Spatial. There's a store in Decentraland, whatever.
You got it. So as we were building that out, we started to realize, okay, how are you going to search for these things? And sort of came to the conclusion that there is no metadata standard for any of these pieces of information, right? When you build an NFT, you can give it metadata properties, size, this, platform, this, publisher, artist, all of these other pieces of information. And part of the discovery issue is that everybody's just typing in whatever the heck they want.
Got it.
And there's no standard around like how you should organize that. And so something we've built into our marketplace, and that we're working with our creators to perfect, is a metaverse data standard that all metaverse objects can be attached to. You don't have to use all of these characteristics, but basically what we're saying is, if you use these characteristics, there are lots of things that follow these characteristics, and so you'll be more discoverable, more searchable, no matter what marketplace you're on, right? If you start with us and then you go to secondary, the goal should be that you're more discoverable because everybody else is listing like this too.
Got it. Yeah. Can you talk a little more about some of the other kinds of solutions that you're trying to build to make this part of you said the metaverse isn't very accessible. It's hard for people right now to have the know-how to access the technology, how to use the technology. What other things are you doing for not just the artists, but like consumers? Are you bridging the gap for them as well?
Yeah. So two things that really felt like barriers, even me, when I was early into crypto, but doing some stuff with the metaverse, it's difficult because a lot of these NFTs are literally sold with crypto and varying types of crypto. Maybe it's ETH, maybe it's Polygon, maybe it's on different chains. Again, not super mainstream focused, difficult to understand if you don't have one of those wallets. And so we're making sure that anything that's sold on Monarch is accessible with a credit card. Literally, if you don't have a blockchain wallet, you can just whip out your credit card, purchase like you're on Shopify, and the NFT gets delivered to a custodial wallet for you, so you can access it and use it whenever you want. But you don't have to necessarily go that extra distance to like make MetaMask account loaded up with crypto.
Sure. If you don't use crypto, you can still use Monarch.
Right. And because you should be able to access and use things in the metaverse, even if you're not,
Yeah, like you said, it should be easy. It should be seamless. And
Right.
of course, like NFTs, it sounds like are a cornerstone of this solution to add protection maybe for artists. But can you elaborate a little more on that? Because I think we've talked a little about some of the challenges and concerns around that too. While they add benefits, it's also a difficulty, right?
Totally. Yeah. And so to me, I like NFTs literally from the technical standpoint for what it represents as a proof of ownership and a receipt and a line on a ledger that says, I purchased this and it sits with me. And I think people give NFTs a bad name sometimes for how they've been used with like artwork and PFPs and like, just spinning up value that may or may not exist depending on what the owners are doing with the collection. I truly like it I like it as a collector as well, but from a purely technical basis, it has great usage if you can use it well within that technical spec. So we use NFTs to literally prove that individual owns that item, but not necessarily to house the file, if you will, or link to the direct file.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of IP, copyright types of issues that can exist when you do that. If it's on the blockchain, you can find it, you can download it. It's not.
You can steal it.
You can steal it. You can steal it. Right. It's not a great way to protect intellectual property for the creators that we're trying to help,
or at least not to limit the use of the thing that the NFT points to.
Right. Exactly. So to help combat a little of that, we've basically built what I will call an unlock platform. It's a content delivery platform. And because I like names and I'm a marketing guy, since our company is named Monarch, the unlock platform is called Chrysalis.
I love it.
Had to do it. And basically what it does for you is it allows the owner of that collection, right, the creator who releases those NFTs, to have an entire dashboard where they can give access to files, to content, to all kinds of different stuff that holders of their NFT or their space or whatever they want to release for the metaverse can access. Now, we're not the only folks that have done that before, right? That's not a novel idea. It's actually a very useful part of how you can be a holder of something and access content or tokens.
In this case, it's a key, you're saying.
Yeah, the NFT becomes the receipt and the key that unlocks access to your files. The two things that we're doing differently with ours that I'm hoping, again, sort of makes the tech disappear for the consumer, but give the creator the benefit, is one, for extra protection, we basically have like double authorization to directly access that file. So you have to authorize once to see the dashboard that shows you the files and the content, and then to download it. Every time you click to download, it generates a new time expiring link. So you have like 30 seconds to download it. It means that file's not going to get shared anywhere else. It means you can't copy paste it. Nothing else can happen there. It's like you can download it this time. Sure, you can log back in and download it again, but it's not going to work forever.
Yeah, only if you're holding the NFT to unlock that door.
In that moment.
So it's not necessarily like you and I know that if you got my wallet address on the blockchain, you can send me anything. You could send me an NFT. The same way that somebody might say, hey, I left my key under the doormat. You could send your key NFT to me and I could sign into the marketplace and I could try to like steal one of these files. But it's a lot more rigmarole than just the way things are now, looking stuff up on the internet and copying it with a click.
Right. And that's where the next piece comes in, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
So in the long run, you don't want to download anything, right? Because that again puts extra friction for the consumer, right? I get this NFT, but then I have to go log into this thing and view this thing and then download this thing and then upload this thing.
Right. All these steps.
Yeah. All those steps. And we're asking consumers to be like file managers at the same time. Why? Don't do it. So the extra piece that we're doing is that we're opening up an authenticated API. Big words, I apologize. Basically, a two-way conversation that our system can have with other metaverse systems like Spatial or Decentraland.
Oh.
And it allows them to have an authenticated key that when they see one of their users who has one of our NFTs in their wallet, we say, hey, here's the file. And they have the metaverse platform then has access to bring the file into their system for their user and load it up.
Got it. It's a delivery system.
Delivery system. Yeah. We host the files. We pay for all of the infrastructure. We're just basically giving partnered platforms with us access to those files for users that are authenticated through their NFT.
Okay, so it's at one point, it's like the store where you go, the literal marketplace where artists can list their art, where consumers can go find furniture for their metaverse space or a unicorn to put on the rainbow or whatever. Yeah. But it's also this secure access system, token gating, and it's a delivery mechanism so that when you buy it, you don't got to pack it up in your metaverse car and download it and do all that stuff. You just show up, log in, and it's there waiting for you.
You got it.
So we've talked a little about NFTs and how Monark is using them to guarantee proof of ownership. They're using blockchain technology in this way, but can you talk a little more about why for artists specifically that's important?
Sure. In the same realm that you probably want to sign your work of art, right? On whether it's a painting, the artist signs that, and it's authentic. You want to have a representation of an authenticity for anything that you put on the blockchain, right? That's why we have NFTs. It's why we can trace it back to some location. We want to know that it's real, that it's authentic, it's from the source. That's why some of that conversation about like why it won't really matter if people download the asset is real, because you can track it back from an authentic location and know who holds the real one and who created the real one. The issue that happens, depending on how you set that collection up in the blockchain, is that, let's say call it a barrier to entry. It's not necessarily easy to create your own smart contract, which creates a collection, which then is owned by your individual address or your wallet that you can track back to that. That's how you do that, and you prove that authenticity basically as an artist, is that you want to have your wallet, and your wallet creates or owns a smart contract, and that smart contract creates or owns the NFTs. It's a nice little Russian Matryoshka doll,
Sure.
representation of how those things are created.
Right. And for the folks listening, what we're saying is that there are a lot of marketplaces or smart contract tools where you can go write a smart contract, but you don't necessarily own it.
Right. And, there are some that are trying to get out there that help you do it, but they don't necessarily help you do all the pieces. One that you introduced me to was Manifold, and Manifold Studio, which I think is fantastic on Polygon and ETH, and it really helps creators sort of create their own smart contract, but it sort of ends there. And you also have to have a little bit of a development knowledge to do anything with that now that you've created it. It is not a one and done. And so something that we're trying to both get the word out about and then help creators do this, and we actually had to do some custom dev work to get this done, is with our marketplace as opposed to OpenSea or other marketplaces. When you come on as a creator, you create your collection and you start putting NFTs up there. That contract, that collection is owned by your wallet, not Monarch's wallet, not a shared wallet with 100 other collections on it, which is what OpenSea does right now. There is a singular wallet, a singular location that is dictated as the owner of that collection because of how the smart contract is written. That means all royalties go back to that. That means control of whether you can list that on the secondary market or whether you move it somewhere else is all controlled by you, not by us, not by a centralized location. The way you manage it is through that wallet. In fact, you could go to like Etherscan and log in with your wallet and literally edit that collection or that smart contract. You can do different stuff there. So it's fully controlled by you, at least as far as what you are able to update, admin, and change on a permanent blockchain. And again, the reason I think that people aren't paying attention to that a whole lot right now is that from a convenience standpoint, places like OpenSea make it easy to go click mint, put your collection up, start, and put it on their shared smart contract, because they don't even really say that it's on a shared smart contract or what that is or why it's important. But 5 years in the future, 10 years in the future, let's say OpenSea goes belly up or gets bought by Epic Games or does whatever. The only way that you could administrate or draw the lines to who owns or who created that collection is through OpenSea's database. That is the only place that that record exists. It is not on the blockchain, it's in their database.
Got it. So you're creating a solution where instead of existing in one centralized location, you're taking advantage of the blockchain infrastructure that guarantees this ownership is yours, the creators.
You got it. Why not? Why write it on a centralized database when you could just write it on the blockchain instead? Yeah. So everybody that creates something inside our marketplace, they'll have the option to mint to a shared smart contract if they want to like sidestep the cost of creating a collection. But with our contract, it's pretty small. It's like $40 at this point. But it's very simple for them to make their own collection, have it owned by their wallet. They can even transfer the ownership of that collection to anyone else they want. So like if you've got a buddy who is a great artist but it knows nothing about it, they could set up an account for them, get all the stuff in there, and then transfer ownership of that smart contract to him so that they can reap the benefits and have the singular ownership of that without like having to share seed phrases or wallets or anything.
Sure. Is there a way to like distribute or set up any kind of royalty too? Like, let's say I'm a curator and I'm hosting a collection for a number of different artists.
Yeah. So we have a feature called payout groups, where whenever you list a NFT for sale on the marketplace, you can select whichever payout group you've created. You can create multiples of them. And so you could have 2, 5, 20 wallets at different percentage levels in that payout group. And then decide like, okay, I'm going to sell this one and I'm the curator, so I take 5% and the artist has 95%, and it does it for you. It doesn't even pass through our wallet. On the blockchain, the transaction happens and it just gets split.
Wow. Have you thought about doing or incorporating variable royalties, like rules-based royalties that change over time? 10% until we sell $1 million, at which point so-and-so gets 100% of the royalties or something like that?
I like the idea. The difficulty in that from like a royalty standpoint is that while you can write some of those rules into the smart contract, it's sort of up to the secondary market whether they abide by those rules or not.
Got it.
I'll give you an example. You can mark on a contract, you can mark up a royalty to whatever percentage you want to. OpenSea will only respect that up to 10%. Right.
Very interesting.
It's like, you could do it. It might not work when you try to put it out there.
I think that's going to be a frontier of conversation in the next year in our space, because they, X2, Y2, whatever their marketplace is called, is just in a big thing about, refusing to acknowledge royalties. That's going to be, I think, a hot button issue. And I suspect that we'll see variable royalties set by creators or less involvement from platforms. Those are my personal thoughts, but definitely a lot to come down the pipeline.
I agree. I mean, at some point, it might get to the point where you can very easily do peer-to-peer trades with a smart contract, or with just, the marketplace becomes the smart contract and you don't have to have any level of that centralization there. There's just a contract that that if you send X command and this person sends Y command, the trade is made.
Something else we didn't talk about, but I don't know if you want to talk about it at all, are like the costs to user. Are there different packages that you can purchase as a Monarch member? Is it where you can just go in, anyone can buy something off the shelves? Are there different fees for artists? If you want to get into that at all, I think that might be interesting to learn about.
Yeah, we can touch it.
Because everybody always wants to know, like, okay, but what's it going to cost me?
Yeah. So on the creator side, from a sort of awareness perspective, it's 100% free. Right. Anyone who's a creator can get in there. And I mean, anyone. We're not trying to build this like curated marketplace. I want people, if they want to release something, to put it up there. Now, if it is profane, we might have some conversations. Or if it's like, the first sketch drawing that my 3-year-old created, it might not make it to the homepage, but it's going to be in there. And so it's free to get stuff in there. We have 3 different tiers for creators, depending on what level of basically help we can give them. The base tier basically just like gets you access to the platform and you can sell whatever you want. And we take 5% of the sale for doing that. The middle tier we call partner, and you get access to all of the platform, including Chrysalis, which is our unlocked platform, and then our internal marketing. So you'll be on our mailings that we send out through email. We'll tweet about you. We'll actually use my agency to start doing some marketing for you.
Yeah, wow.
So it's how we get the word out about that. We'll also host all of those files inside Chrysalis and that kind of thing for eternity. It ends up going on a version of IPFS that's also protected. So it's decentralized and we can't control whether it goes up or down. The top tier is called Premier, and we're basically doing that for exclusive drops. And that's sort of like a negotiated rev share scenario, but that's where we literally take all of the agency, all the marketing, and put our power behind it so that we can make sure it's a sellout.
Yeah. Okay. So you said it's negotiable. The lowest tier is like a 5%. So like a transaction fee almost. But you're kind of giving folks the tools, not just to list their art or, token gate it, but really to help them sell it.
Yeah.
I think 100%. That's pretty big deal, man.
Yeah. We want people to be able to sell this work, especially work that people like, work that people want to see and check out. On the back end of it, we're a marketing agency and a metaverse marketing agency too. And so we want to do the things that we've always been doing, but to do it with more people.
Very cool.
Yeah. On the creator side, or I would say the consumer side of it, we've got some fun things that people will be able to access, different ways that we'll have things sold. So there's the traditional, like, go and buy an NFT. There's going to be auctions and timed auctions. There's a feature called what we call like a mystery box, which is sort of like a randomized mint, if you will. So you'll buy a mystery box and it can either contain one or multiple NFTs, and you don't know which one you're going to get. You buy it, you unwrap it. Let's see what's in it.
That's fun. Yeah. Like from different creators on the marketplace?
It could be from different creators. It could be from all one creator. Could be from different collections. We can even include a physical product into them. Capture your shipping address on the way through and send something to you with the product. So there's lots of fun stuff that we can do with it, depending on what a creator wants to do. The goal is just to have the tool set and then allow people to be just super creative with it.
Okay, so what are some of the other things you're doing to promote the launch?
Right. So in the idea of, obviously we want to empower creators, but we're also wanting to empower our community and be able to give it back to them in a way that is tangible. So we come from a marketing background, or I come from a marketing background. And one thing that we always used to do, especially in music, was the idea of a street team, right? People who are passionate about what you're doing or the product, who want to help promote it. And so we're about to get to a campaign that I'm calling migration, right? Where the goal here is that we want you to migrate from places like OpenSea, things that aren't serving you quite well, and we want you to migrate to Monark. So we're kind of calling our campaign migration. But the goal with migration here is that we have a handful of things that we're asking folks to help us with, or that we need. Maybe that's inviting a designer or creator to the Discord. Maybe that's sending a tweet or bringing us onto a podcast. And so we're going to list out a big list of all of these different things inside migration in the Discord. And what you can do is claim one of those. And then when you do it, you just come back and drop evidence of you doing it. And by doing that, you earn what I'm going to call FLUTTER. And FLUTTER is a point system, let's say. And so we're going to release 10,000 FLUTTER. And out of that 10,000 FLUTTER, that represents 10% of our revenue for Q4 from Monark.
Wow.
Right. So the more Flutter you earn, the more revenue share you basically receive from the marketplace directly.
Right. So the better the marketplace does, the more the Flutter will be worth. That's great.
That's right.
Very cool.
And I got to say this from like a legal and an SEC type of scenario. If you want to stay anonymized and help with that stuff too, that is fine. We'll probably compensate you with store credit in the amount of that Flutter. If it's over $600, we got a 1099 because it's a business. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Not a bad problem to have, to be doing business with a business in blockchain. That's pretty great.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's cool, Michael.
Yeah, I think the campaign slogan is going to be join the migration, earn Flutter.
Yeah, Flutter is so good, man. Flutter is so good.
I'm learning things from the Faceless Many every day.
I'm just trying to think about, if you need like a layer 2, it could be nectar. I don't know.
Yep.
You got pollen. Yeah. I like Flutter best though. Flutter is really good. Have I missed anything in this? I'm on board so far. like this is pretty good. Is there more that you envision like at the time of launch that's going to be happening, or more that you hope to accomplish to make it even better? Because to me, that's like, wrap it up and send it. I'm good, man.
Yeah. That's the base MVP. If you can think of it, we should have just launched a marketplace as the MVP. But all of those things wrapped together.
Oh no, I like it.
It represents like a more complete solution to these problems. In the future, there are other things I want to do on the roadmap. The biggest of which being, I think, leaving the metaverse to go to a marketplace to purchase said item is still a state too far. And I would love to be able to integrate to where you're in the metaverse, you see an item, you purchase it, it loads up in your wallet, which is already connected to the metaverse, and then you load it.
Yeah.
And we're honestly just one step away, because with file delivery and purchasability, it's right there. We just kind of need some of the metaverse platforms to allow you to sign a transaction within the platform.
Sure.
So it's not far.
And you're not just necessarily talking about like spatial or Decentraland, a video game-esque login on your browser digital space where people go and play. I imagine you're also talking about, like for folks listening, the metaverse is not just that. It's also going to be, if you have a pair of glasses, right, so that somebody's clothing that has a little chip in it will show up as this like funky movie rainbow, digital jacket, whatever. And presumably they'll be able to, if that kind of an item is in the marketplace, they'll be able to click that and purchase that too, right?
That's right. I mean, we're talking AR, we're talking VR. It could be an asset that you load into Snapchat. It could be something that you load into like an Epic Games game if they open up their, ecosystem to load outside content ever, because most of these assets can be built in a way that they can integrate into, you've got two platforms. You've got like Unity and Unreal-ish platforms that are dealing in these 3D AR, VR types of worlds. And so it's not incredibly difficult to build things that would fit either or both of those.
Yeah, and I guess we're painting these pictures of like the metaverse now, the metaverse not so far from now, and the metaverse in the future. Are there other ways that you think that this kind of technology is going to be brought into people's everyday, day-to-day lives that would make something like this really relevant to, somebody who might never put on a VR headset?
Yeah, I mean, stores, easy stores like IKEA are kind of already doing a little bit of this in like a shopping experience, right? You've ever used that, like, oh, you're shopping at something, click this button and view the chair in your home type of thing.
Yeah, okay.
Right? That's a metaverse layer, right? That's using AR to be able to kind of experience part of this. But I think we're just going to start seeing that becoming more cohesive to where we're blurring the lines of those types of experiences, and to where you might want to start purchasing or owning, maybe you want to own entire experiences. Maybe you want to buy a ticket to an experience. Maybe you want to own certain structures. The big thing that's the sort of selling point for the metaverse these days is land. Buying land and real estate in other metaverses, which is its own thing, and I'm not super into that structure.
Sure.
Because I think in general, what good is land without something to do on it?
Yeah.
And so we typically tend to be in the what am I going to do on it market.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Giving people the means to put stuff there to come and experience.
Yeah.
And I know that because you have a longer term kind of vision just generally on the metaverse, that's probably a big part of what you're building here. Can you talk a little about, everything we do, it's permanent when we're talking about blockchain, we're talking about NFTs. And so, for artists who create these tools or for the people who buy them, can you elaborate a little on what that means? The implications?
For the permanence sort of issues?
Yeah, well, and not just the issues, but the opportunities I think that are there.
Yeah, so you and I have talked a little bit about what do we call it, blockmail?
Yeah.
For folks who aren't familiar with blockchain technology and what it means to have a wallet, I think a wallet is a bad way to reference.
Yeah, not a good word for it.
Yeah, it's like a wallet that's also like a cell phone that's also an email address. It's literally an address that is anonymized unless you tell people who you are and where it is, and you can receive things at it. Right? Let's boil it down to its most basic usage. And it's what's interesting about it as a protocol is that you can receive things at it. When you do receive things, all of that information is public, which is positive or negative depending on what you're trying to send, and it's also permanent. At least that's the goal of it, to be permanent. And so from a positive scenario, it's great because it's very easy to look things up. Whether that's like a permanent informational index or files that will never go down, or things that you will never lose, that's a positive. The negative can be if you do things wrong, or if you don't understand necessarily how you're setting things up, then it's a permanent sort of record of things that you didn't want to happen. I'll give you an example. The way that a lot of NFTs are built right now, the very simplest part of it is that you have some basic information about what kind of NFT it is. You have a link to an asset, and then you have another link to basically a JSON file that talks about the metadata. In most like PFP or like JPEG style NFTs, the link to the asset is the actual image that is the NFT. And people seem to be fine with that in general. For varying reasons, that's good and bad, right? You can copy it, you can do whatever, but
sure,
you can't get away from that. And there are lots of different debates as to whether doing that with 3D files is a good or bad thing, or better or worse. I would say it's worse, because if you put a 3D file as the asset link on the blockchain, like we mentioned earlier, it's permanently accessible, downloadable, public. And so when you're trying to sell that asset or provide that asset to someone, you're basically providing it to everyone and using the NFT as the hope and the trust and the, indicator of that intellectual property. But anyone, I spend a lot of time in music, and I can tell you how many businesses are simply built around tracking royalty and IP. Like entire industries of business that are around that. And while it might be easier to do with the blockchain, I personally think that putting something out there without even trying to protect the IP of it is sort of a losing game.
That's interesting, because I tend to believe that because NFTs establish provenance without effort, and that they give you certainty, that it is actually beneficial for as many people as possible to download, to steal, to use that idea or asset, because every time they share it. Unlike, the other day, Kim and I were looking at a picture in a local blog taken by a photographer she knows, but given improper credit.
Mm-hmm.
That's never going to happen with an NFT. And to me, the royalty I might miss out on because somebody is sharing my work with their friend without my, permission is less valuable than somebody sharing it and everybody who sees it knows it's mine. Because if you want an idea like that in the future or a creation like that in the future, there's one place you can go to get it, and it's right here.
Yeah.
And to my mind, when an NFT is attached, anybody can share it and share it and share it and share it and share it, and no one can pass it off as anything but mine. And to me, that's the big nugget value, I guess.
I think I would just say you can do both. And if it's not difficult to do both, why would you not?
That's a great question.
It's the same reason why if you go to a restaurant and they have a steak on the menu, there's not usually the option to say like, well, this steak could be $50 or $0. It's up to you.
Well, but the difference is, I guess, the difference is if collecting payment for my idea, like you said, we could do both
Sure.
ensuring that they knew it was mine and giving me payment to use it. If paying me to use it prevented them from sharing it, then I wouldn't want them to do it. I want as many people to share my ideas with as many more people as possible, because to me, again, this is maybe a personal thing, but the ultimate value is that everybody on earth knows if you want an idea like that, you got to go to Evan Mansmouth to get it.
Yeah.
And that is more valuable. If there is a point at which people will stop sharing my ideas because they just don't want to pay for it, then I would say, forget about it. Prove that it's mine, and we'll talk about paying for it later when you need a new one.
Yeah. I mean, at that level, you could just release some things for free and some things behind a wall, which I think is just good marketing.
Yeah, no doubt.
Everybody should do that at some level. But there's, let's say the permanence issue of it is, I think, what gets to me.
Well, but there's definitely a way, as you say, to do it right, or to do it better than it's been done now.
Sure. There's, I mean, I'm not necessarily suggesting we go the way of like DRM and what, how that used to be connected with MP3s. Do you remember the days when?
I don't even know what a DRM is, brother. What's a DRM?
Like digital rights management.
Oh.
Yeah. After Napster, before like really Spotify and all of that kind of streaming was really put together, iTunes and other platforms, when you would buy MP3s, had DRM injected into it, basically, which means that, like, yes, you downloaded the MP3, but it is labeled with your information and cannot be played by any account except for your account. It was a way to protect IP. And it was ridiculously painful, because then you're like trying to transfer stuff to your own devices, but you couldn't authorize your own device because of this, and it just got annoying. Yeah,
sure. But that's not what you're trying to do here. You're trying to protect these ideas, but also make them accessible, forever and ever and ever, in a way that's good for artists and for consumers.
Absolutely.
Better for the metaverse.
Absolutely. And seamless, I mean, in the long run, there's no way to protect 100%, digital file copyright. In the same way that you can't stop people from using a cassette tape to tape the radio, let's say, 30 years ago.
Sure.
I'm not suggesting we try to stop that. I'm saying let's both put some protections over IP, whether that's through licensing or making it slightly more difficult to right-click save as. And in the same breath, let's make it easier for folks that have purchased that, to bring it into any system they want to, because that, to me, is the biggest reason to stop any kind of pirating, right?
Yeah.
Pirating occurs when it is difficult to do the right thing or do the appropriate way to move things over there. But when the like payment or official channels makes it the most slick, easy way to get something that you want, that's generally the way people do it.
Well, and what I like about this too is, like you said, the metaverse creators are kind of relegated to the back seat right now.
Yeah.
And I like this idea. Most people I know want to support small businesses. They want to support independent creators. And I think that there's sometimes kind of a gap between the store that shows you a chair and the artisan who crafted it. So it's cool that people will be able to build relationships with creators. They'll be able to find and discover their work and go back to it again and again and again, because they, kind of have this stall, so to speak, in this marketplace that gives them a space for it and for people to find them. So, that's cool, man.
That's the hope. That's the hope for sure. Yeah. And it's funny. I think some of my background to music too just plays a lot into this, because I've had conversations with other folks in the industry and like the metaverse industry about this too. I think there are a lot of mistakes that the music industry made, both from like a legal and a licensing and a compensation scenario, that I can smell the beginnings of some of those same faults with Web3 and blockchain, right? And I'm hoping that maybe folks can learn from those mistakes and look back, right? Like look back at what the RIAA did when people were pirating content and say, you sued a lot of people. What good did that do in the end?
Yeah.
How did that actually change things from a conversational standpoint? We moved to streaming and we maybe ended up getting some, litigations or laws around things that might make that better. But did it really benefit the creators all that much? That's what they were saying they were trying to do, is that we're going to litigate because we're protecting creative IP.
Yeah.
That happened because things like what I'm talking about with this Unlock platform just weren't put in place appropriately at the right time.
Yeah.
I don't want the metaverse to get into that mess. I don't want Web3 to get into that mess.
Yeah,
I think we can step over that stage and just make things easy for everyone.
Well, I'd like to, kind of take the second part of our time and talk a little more about what you think the metaverse is going to be like, expound more and dream and play more, talk about some of your favorite experiences. Real quick, though, hit it now and we'll hit it at the end. Since we're putting a period on Monarch, I want you to tell people how they can get involved, how they can help you, how they can support or leverage the platform to their benefit.
Yeah. So the biggest thing that we're doing right now is onboarding our first creators. The marketplace is finished, which is fantastic. It was a lot of dev work. So we're moving our first cohort of creators onto the marketplace before we do an official launch. So best thing you can do if you're a creator, hit us up on Twitter, find our Discord link there and join and start talking through. We're basically doing like white glove onboarding for anybody that wants to be one of our first creators, and it's free to get in there, right? Like just like a secondary market, you can get in, put your content up there, list it, and it's free to do all of that and have great awareness. Monarch takes a small portion of the sale when you sell an NFT, and that's basically how we make money. The only way we make money at this point.
And in terms of if somebody's maybe not a creator, but they just want to follow along, they're going to follow you on Twitter. Do you have a Discord that they can join? Is it linked there?
It is. Yep. And the homepage of the marketplace will be up, honestly, probably by the time this thing hits podcasts. So
awesome. What's the website?
It's going to be monark.market.
And that's Monarch with a K, not
that's
a
right.
CH.
MONARK.
What was the decision there to, obviously you're thinking about the butterfly. Was there a significance of the K over the CH?
Spelling so that we're findable versus the CH. There's so many monarchs with the CH, both from like a royalty standpoint and a butterfly standpoint. So we wanted to be a little bit different. And the reason for the butterfly is I was trying to think through something that represented change, something that represented like metamorphosis. And to me, the metaverse sort of represents like that second layer, that second generation, whether that's of reality or of the internet or, whatever you want to consider it there. And I'm hoping that the work that we're doing will help ease the distance between where we are right now and the metamorphosis that we'll hopefully experience here soon. So to me, the Monarch idea, the chrysalis, moving from one stage to another just has a lot of imagery in there.
I'm just imagining you in like a Steve Jobs turtleneck at CES or something on stage with like a slideshow behind you and you're like, consider the caterpillar. And it's got a little picture of like Google on its head, as he enters the chrysalis, and soon his metamorphosis is complete, and there's Monarch, and it's
Yeah.
just, this is the future of the metaverse, and everyone applauds.
Yeah.
Can we look forward to that kind of a presentation?
I'll be happy to do that. I will probably do that presentation in the metaverse as an avatar, just to be really on brand. But yeah.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Have you, as you're thinking about, unrolling it, and can you talk at all about some of like the different things you've considered in terms of how you're going to market this, how you're going to reach creators?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm a builder, and so I know that once we've got this on the rails, and my team is sort of like working through doing onboarding and that kind of deal, that's where I start stepping to the next piece of stuff, because I just build.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to have that so that we can start helping creators, but then also move to the other things that we want to do, which is build in the metaverse, right?
Yeah.
Have events, help our artists have events. There are a couple collections that I'd like to build. The gaming industry has these things that they call kit bash, which are like builder kits almost. And there are a handful of builder kits that I wish I had, so that I could like rapid prototype spaces and experiences and that kind of thing. And I think we will probably build some of those.
That's cool.
I know I texted you this a couple nights ago, but I'm serious that I want to hold a, say, bi-weekly talk show in the metaverse.
Yeah.
Because what other place, and sure you can do this in Twitter Spaces, but it is not multi-sensory. What other platform can you get someone from Amsterdam to talk about, to basically like give a TED talk at the same time that you've got, a Romanian band who's going to play in between segments, and then you also have like a presentation from the CEO of some tech company.
Yeah.
All in this space with a live audience, and we can like virtual camera everything.
I mean, I think that would be what would be incredible to me about that is like just the ability to experience what you could not experience in person. I don't know if you heard about there was a space that was held in Spatial where the sculptor Gustav Klimt, he's into Spatial. Yeah. And people listening may recognize his name. He's a very famous fine artist. Has a gallery in Spatial and did this performance. He invited everyone to his gallery where his works are displayed if he's not there. And, anyone around the world can hear him in voice recording talk about why he made this thing at any time, day or night. But at this particular time, he gathered people from all over the world to witness an exhibition. He placed like 100 shapes around the gallery, just polygons.
Yeah.
And invited everybody to grab one and bring it to the center. And in real time, in the metaverse, he composed a sculpture with the pieces they brought him. And then he made a real one in the physical world. And I think he, tied them both to NFTs and auctioned them off. And everyone who was there got to say, they witnessed Klimt create a sculpture. They co-created it with him. Like, you can't do that in the real world.
No, you can't. There's I've been talking a lot to Tyrone, who from Spatial, who actually today is dropping a really great collection of his own. He's a fantastic spray paint artist.
Great artist, yeah.
It makes some amazing work. And I got on a space with him a couple of days ago and was sort of like egging him on to take what he's doing physically and move it into the virtual world. And now I do understand the tech is not there in some scenarios to do
replicating the physics of spray paint.
Yeah, and he mixes things, and it depends on how gravity does to the paint and how it drips. And I know we're not there yet, but we're not very far from having that level of physics in a metaverse scenario. And in that world, you could be a graffiti artist or a spray paint artist, and I could invite you to my space. And we could say, hey, can I pay you to mural right here? Right? Yeah. Do you do this? Or you could just you could be Banksy of the metaverse, right? You could pop people's spaces and tag things. And
I mean, as a stopgap, what's to stop us from getting like one of those cameras that straps to your head on like a headlight, like unobtrusive, and having him do his thing, stream it to the metaverse, and then stand back, take a picture of it, remove the background, and you've got, I mean, it's not a perfect one for one with the texture of the wall, but
Sure.
a pretty good like sticker that he could brand and sell in marketplaces for people to put all over their, whatever, their garage in the metaverse.
Yeah. Yeah. It's totally doable. There are even apps that I use on the Oculus right now where you can basically 3D paint. You have a palette and you can weave things around and model
Oh
things.
yeah, in dimensional
Physical, like good old Minority Report, physical space type of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a different level of art, a different type of art that you can do that you can then bring into a space or do it directly in a space if you wanted to.
Have you seen? Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying there's levels of creation, ideation, commerce, all kinds of things that are possible because yes, we can apply the same rules of physics and the reality of what we have right now to the metaverse, but you can also peel them off. You can also take them off and do whatever you want inside of it. And I think that's where the more mainstream those experiences become, the more people are going to be able to innovate in those spaces.
Yeah.
And my hope is that we can at least just set some base structure for folks so that they can jump off of it, so that they can do that innovation, because it's not going to happen without, people thinking it's easy to do that.
That's right. It's like a circular relationship. They're not going to come and find it unless you make it discoverable. And then unless they use it, you can't get the feedback you need to iterate and build. And so it's something that we just need to keep working to build tools for people to access it with.
You got it.
In the last couple minutes here, do you have, Michael, a favorite experience thus far inside the metaverse that you've built or experienced?
Man, I have a bunch. Some that we've done as the Faceless Many, some that I've just been lucky enough to like randomly step into and be like, what is happening?
Yeah.
We sort of my first like experience that we made in the metaverse was doing the sort of gallery gala that we did with the Faceless Many, where we invited a collection of folks to an event and debuted the worlds that we had built and debuted a gallery of the artwork and that kind of thing. And that's a very simple, honestly, sort of event or experience in the metaverse when you think about it, because you're really just walking people from space to space and talking about it. But it was fun. And I think everybody that was there enjoyed. It was sort of a new experience or a novel experience for them because they'd never, stood on top of a 100-foot statue and taken a selfie. Or, I think we had weapons that had made
from the collection.
Grabbing a virtual weapon and like running at each other is kind of a fun experience. So I think seeing people experience the metaverse for the first time and enjoying it is something I love to see, and then sort of seeing that light bulb moment of like, what else can we do? I would say other ones that I've been into, there's been some music experiences that I thought were fantastic, and like just barely to where they're going to just blow your mind. Again, we're working through some tech issues, some streaming issues, some sound quality issues, but we're getting to where the experiences in the metaverse don't have to be just like, oh, I'm streaming a flat video concert and people are sitting and watching. It can be all around you. The artist, the musicians can be all around you. The experience itself can be all around you. And I think the more people broaden their thoughts on how that can be, the more interesting it's going to become.
Yeah, I would say, some of my favorites have been, I saw a digital painter, my friend Serge recommended Anna Dreambrush. Are you familiar with her work?
I'm not.
She's one of those who, like Minority Report style, is in her studio in the metaverse and weaves these, she weaves these, like, I don't know, she's done pirate ships, she's done all kinds of stuff and does the whole environment for them, the background, and goes big in terms of, it's a pirate ship that's 50 feet tall, but also does really minute stuff. You can kind of zoom in and explore the planks on the deck. Just very, very cool. And then the other one that I'm really intrigued by right now is I sent this to you the other day, the Open Metaverse Project, OM,
Yep.
by Punk6529.
Yeah.
They're endeavoring to build out a whole digital world where people can buy neighborhoods or districts or gallery rooms and just kind of do what they want with it. And they hope to create urban spaces, wild spaces, and build the largest metaverse that is a collaborative project, to date or ever. It's really impressive.
To be honest, I think my favorite potential usage of the metaverse is when we can mix AR and VR together into something that is seamless.
Same.
And not disjointed, not two different worlds, to where you could walk into a venue or walk into a space and you see things that are really there. And you also see things that are not really there. And then there's an exit over here that I can take if I want to go into something that is completely not there and see a different world, and it's just stages of the experience that you're selecting that you want to go become part of.
Is that where you think it's going to be in like 5 years? You think we'll be in the grocery store and there will be an overlay of take this route with a little green arrow, or an overlay of the ingredients list that says, hey, this has got weed in it and you're allergic to it, don't eat it? What do you envision?
I would say in 5 years, that will definitely be on your phone, right?
Yeah.
Hands down. Easy to do. We could do it now, just waiting for someone to make it. Whether or not that will translate to something that is more tied into our humanity is really just a tech question. Who's going to make the Magic Leap or whatever, the Snapchat glasses, the Google Glass? Who's going to make the version that doesn't make you look like an asshole?
Yeah.
And make it feel like this is part of what I'm doing. And again, there's all kinds of different stuff, whether we're talking about see-through glass, whether we're talking about projection into retina so that no one else sees it, but we see it. Lots of different styles of technology that you can get into that allow you to do that. It's really just going to be a game of what hardware gets there first. And when it does, you're going to have, again, a music a metaphor here, but you're going to have another like iPod moment or iPhone moment where suddenly there was nobody doing this and now everyone can do it.
Yeah. If you had the space, the time, if you weren't busy building this and resources were no question, what kind of tech or experience or space, what would you build? What's on your list?
Good question. I would probably try to replicate initially, this is because I'm human and this is what we do. I would probably try to replicate the real life spaces that I love the most.
Yeah.
First, so that I could just visit them whenever I wanted to, right? Like I would have Monarch's office, on a mountain overlooking this beautiful landscape, with picture windows everywhere, just so I could go work there whenever I wanted to. That'd probably be my initial thing. And then I would probably try to build like every, every type of thing that defies all the laws of physics. The inception rooms where you walk here and then you end up walking there because the steps are not where they should be.
Sure. An upside down obelisk. Yeah.
Yeah. Build things that make people have conversations. And to me, I would say with how it is today, everything about the metaverse for me has been still about connection and humans and trying to have those types of conversations, right? Like I got into the metaverse during COVID when I wasn't really leaving my house that much. And so it was a way for me to talk to people like you and get to know other people. And I think it's still that way for me. So I'm excited to, maybe be part of building those types of things where people who might not feel comfortable leaving their house, going to a different state, going to see some other things, could experience some of those things or have communication with someone who, maybe they don't have the money to leave their small rural hometown, but they really want to understand a different mindset or a different viewpoint. We can probably give them the ability to do that by talking to people having experiences, doing other things inside a virtual world instead.
Yeah, I often say to people who are concerned about the metaverse that I believe folks like you, others who are building the future that we'll inherit, are ultimately trying to craft experiences that will draw us into a deeper understanding of what it means to be human, that they'll bring us more deeply into our physical lives and not take us away to some fantasy land.
Yeah. I had a conversation with my business partner, Paul, a couple of days ago, and we always start like very specific and then get very philosophical on these things. But I referenced the book Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. I don't know if you've read that before.
Mm-mm.
There's a lot of different. It's written in like the 40s or 50s, but it's one of those futuristic novels that could be in any time period because it's in the future. And it represents a quick synopsis without giving too much away is that other entities or other beings come to the planet and basically say, hey, we're here to take over, but in a good way. We're doing this because you finally reached a point at which we find you to be like worthy of this knowledge that the universe has more sentient beings than just you. And we're here to help you ascend to that level. And so first off, we're going to end all wars. We're going to make food plentiful, and we're going to eliminate the need for money, right? We're going to just do some of these things for you. And what ends up happening in the long run is that there's this level of like spirituality and technology and physical being that sort of all of the limits are lifted off of that. And there's this sort of realization that all of those three things together are the same. And in one level, it ends up being a bit of the end of humanity from an organic standpoint. Or it could be the beginning of everything else from another standpoint. I really enjoy ideas and philosophies that mix in that type of connection where it's this physical, the scientific, and the spiritual, because I feel like all of those things tend to exist in the same realm of reality. They're not disconnected from each other. And to me, I know some people would say like, oh, the metaverse is man's way to try to create heaven, right? It's transhumanism. I would almost say we all have to ascend to a level of higher being, let's say, in some way. And who am I to say that this isn't the way that things are supposed to go? They're going this way. Why can't we make us be better humans in the same way that we're going?
I love it. Michael, is there anything that I didn't ask you about that you want to share about the metaverse, about MONARK, about yourself before we draw to a close?
Man, I mean, there's so many things.
You said Arthur C. Clarke, and I would invite you, if you think of something else, share it. But what's the quotation that you always share that he says?
Oh, sure. Well, I'll paraphrase, but it's any sufficiently advanced technology should be inseparable from magic. Basically, is the summarization. Saying that like kind of like what we were saying in the beginning, technology shouldn't be visible. If it's advanced enough, you shouldn't be able to even think about how it works or describe how it works. It just works. And whether you're talking Web3 or blockchain or the metaverse or what kind of magic happens in your phone right now, this has gotten there, right? This is magic. The hard part is finding hardware designers and developers is becoming more and more difficult because nobody's focused on the magic that made this anymore, but that's where we're going. And I'm excited about when the hard work that we're creating and everybody's digging into right now moves into the realm of magic.
Well, I'm excited for it too. I know you're working really hard on this, and I can't wait to see it. Remind us one more time how folks can get in touch with you, with MONARK, to experience what you're building.
You bet. So the marketplace site will go up here very, very soon. But for now, on Twitter, we are Made by Monarch, Monarch with a K. And we've got a link tree there that will give you access to everything. We'll keep it updated every day with the latest and greatest of the info that we have out there, tools for creators, ways for enthusiasts and consumers for the metaverse to just dig in and take their first step. And you know what? Hopefully someday we'll link to our office on the mountains in the metaverse.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, my friend, for making time to talk with me about all this stuff. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks so much, Evan.
And thank you, everybody who's watching us on Twitter. I appreciate you all for joining in. I'd say they're good sports for following along. Obviously, you heard it from Michael. If you want to connect with him, you know where to do it. You're watching the stream right now, so be sure to follow on socials. I know speaking, not to speak on your behalf, but I'm sure you'd be happy to hear from anybody who's inspired by this conversation. Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm becoming a bit of a Twitter storm nightmare at night. So tweet at me. I'll be around.
Okay, cool. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Rising Up. Hey, before you go, I've got a quick favor. Would you please take a second to leave us a rating and a comment or quick review? Aside from listening, it's the most important thing you can do to help our show, and we really appreciate it. If you want more from our team, be sure to follow us on Twitter at the Faceless Many. That's where you'll find the link to our Discord server and all the latest updates. If you'd like to be on our show, if you have questions for our team, or if you're interested in becoming a sponsor, send us an email to hello, that's HALLO, at facelesscrypto.com, or get in touch through the contact form at our website. Thanks again for listening to the official podcast of the Financial Revolution. Until next time, rise up.